Greetings, everyone. Today we're going to talk about one of the greatest 80s cartoons that you've probably never seen, let alone heard of. What am I talking about? Well, you probably read the title of the video, so you likely know already. But I'll say it anyway. Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors. Available now on DVD from Shout Factory. And that's what we're going to be talking about today on the Multimedia Chronicles. Welcome back. Now, Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors was another one of those 80s cartoons that I kind of missed at the time when it was originally on. It was originally on during the 1985 to 86 television season. And what was I watching a lot of in 85-86? Well, Transformers, G.I. Joe, and Thundercats. Those are sort of the big three. And a lot of other people were watching stuff like Mask and some other ones that I can't think of. But anyway, it was a great year for cartoons. And in fact, it was so great that some shows kind of got lost in the shuffle. There was so many good cartoons on and so little time in the afternoon, daily, Monday to Friday time slot that kids had to be picky and choosy. And unfortunately, Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors kind of slipped by the notice of a lot of kids. Now myself, I actually discovered the show later when I picked up some of the old VHS releases. A friend of mine was really hardcore into Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors when it was on, and he kept saying, "Sean, you gotta watch this show, it's great, it's like one of the best cartoons on right now," and they're cool. And I caught like a few random episodes, and I thought it was pretty good, and I wanted to see more of it. But the problem was it was on at the same time as everything else that I was watching, so I didn't really get the chance. So it wasn't until years later I picked up some of the VHS releases. So one of the things that really struck me about Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors when I did finally get around to discovering it was the fact that it has a really good story. It's basically a mix of sci-fi and fantasy and just crazy weirdness that could only come out of the world of 80s cartoons. The basic story went like this. This fellow by the name of Audric was a scientist, primarily a botanist, and he was looking to create a new form of plant that could basically solve the universe's hunger problems, or something like that. He was genetically engineering plants, basically. Something went horribly wrong, and this batch of plants that he was working on mutated and became hyper-intelligent and evil. They became the Monster Minds. So, the Monster Minds were born. Audric takes off and escapes. The Monster Minds basically take over his lab, and using the power of the black light, sunlight is actually painful to them, even though they're plants. They're evil plants, so they use evil light. They use the black light. Using the power of the black light, they actually teleport the lab all around the universe. Audric has this thing called that's a root. It's a magic root. There's two halves to the root. He has one half, and he gives the other half to Un. Un is this little robot guy. There, that's Un, who's basically a squire robot. And he's Audric's assistant. So he sends Un off to find Jayce, who is his son, and to give him the other half of the root. The idea being that Jayce will then find Audric, reunite with him, they'll bring the two halves of the root together, and somehow that will destroy the Monster Minds. It's never really explained exactly how that will destroy the Monster Minds, but we just take it as read that it will. So Jayce gets the root and teams up with his old friend Gillian, who's actually a wizard. Yes, a wizard. Flora, who's a little girl, not his sister. Flora, I think, is actually one of the most interesting characters because Flora is actually also a plant. She was one of Audric's earlier experiments in genetically engineering plants, and he created an intelligent plant that took on the form of a little girl. And she can actually communicate with plants. and she can sense when the monster mines are near and things like that. And then finally, they team up with Herc Stormsailor, the the resident Han Solo ripoff, who has a huge spaceship that looks like a big sailing ship with thrusters on it, called the Pride of the Skies 2. I don't know what happened to the Pride of the Skies 1. But anyway, they all team up to basically find Audric, reunite the two halves of the magic root, and stop the monster mines once and for all. So thus begins the epic saga of Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors. And that's basically it in a nutshell. So it's basically a really cool mix of sci-fi and fantasy and high adventure. It was kind of notable in that Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors had, I don't know, about 54 episodes released on VHS. There's 65 episodes in the entire series. So roughly 54 of them were put out on VHS by Magic Window, which was a division of Columbia Pictures, home video division. That's pretty good for a show that most people missed the first time it was around. So clearly it picked up a fan base somewhere along the line and warranted that number of video releases. So I picked up the video releases, and this was like probably early 90s. I picked up a few of them and then a few more later through eBay. And I just fell in love with it. I thought it was a great show. It has this... it's kind of interesting. Like, you know, I always talk about how I'm a big continuity buff and such. There really isn't a continuity to Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors. There's only 2 cases in the entire series where there's any kind of discernible continuity to it, and that's, of course, the first episode, which sets everything up. And then there's a 5-part mini-series called The Liberty Stone, which occurs about halfway through the series. Weird, I hallucinated for a second there. I thought there was something written on my hand. Secret messages. Just out of the corner of my eye. It was kind of weird. Another thing that I thought was pretty cool about the whole sort of look and feel of the show was it has kind of a dark edge to it, which I thought was really cool. Like, for example, the monster mines actually have 2 forms that they can take. They have a humanoid form, and then they have a vehicle form. So the whole way the monster mines operate is like really cool and creepy and weird. Like, for example, one of the ways that they're attempting to take over the universe in the story is by using these things called monster vines, which are basically these huge, fast-growing vines that just wrap around and choke at anything that they grab. Like, I'm talking entire planets, okay? I'm not just talking people. Like, massive, massive things that they use to take over planets and star systems. And then from these monster vines, these pods will grow. And then out of the pods, it'll like eject this sort of gooey seed that will grow into monster mine foot soldiers. So even if Sawboss, the leader of the monster mines, isn't at a particular location, if he has monster vines there, he can use the monster vines and telepathically, via the monster vines and the power of the black light, control these foot soldiers and instruct the monster vines to grow foot soldiers for that area. So like if Jayce and his gang are there, he might do that to have some guys to try to take care of Jayce and things like that. And it's really cool, like when these pods open up, this blob spurts out onto the ground, and it's all these gooey sound effects, and you see it growing and throbbing and becoming the full-grown monster mind creature. And you see like veins and corpuscles, and you can actually see its brain and its eyeballs, and it's like throbbing, and it's like, wow, this is pretty gory stuff for a little kids show, which just made it even cooler to me. So it was a long time coming for the DVDs. Fans have been wanting to see it on DVD for so long. I mean, all the other 80s cartoons worthy of note, for the most part, have had at least full or partial releases. And everybody was wondering, where's Jayce? Where is Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors? Now, I have a little interesting sort of side story. I mentioned on a few occasions Adventures of the Galaxy Rangers is also out on DVD now. It's kind of funny because I've always kind of associated these two shows. This is going to sound lame and just crazy, but I've always kind of associated these two shows. I mean, even though they weren't even on at the same time. This was 1985, this was 1986, so they didn't even compete with each other. But both of them were released on VHS simultaneously, roughly the same number of episodes apiece. Both shows have 65 episodes each. But both of them were released on VHS by Magic Window and had roughly the same number of episodes. I think one of them had 48 episodes released and one of them had 54. So I can't remember if Jayce was the 48 or the 54, or anyway, who cares? A lot of the majority of the episodes were put out. And they were putting them out simultaneously, and I had a bunch of the Galaxy Rangers ones as well, so I kind of always connected the two. And then, the same month that Adventures of the Galaxy Rangers Volume 1 comes out, Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors Volume 1 comes out on DVD. How cool is that? It's like they're still connected! Except unfortunately the connection has vanished, and the illusion is shattered because Volume 2 of Galaxy Rangers, completing the set, is now available. And we're all still waiting with bated breath for the announcement that Volume 2 of Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors is coming out. So that pretty much wraps up Part 1 of our in-depth look at Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors. I was trying to do this all in one part, and then I expanded to 2 parts, and now it looks like it's going to be 3 parts. So yes, 3 parts. Just because there's so much to go into, and it's kind of an obscure show, and I really wanted to give it proper coverage to give you all the information I could about it. So this time around, we basically took a look at the story and the show itself, while also taking a look at some of the previous video releases. Well, next time we're going to wrap up our look at the previous video releases, specifically looking at how it has fared on DVD until the current release. And we're also going to look a little deeper into the origins of the show by taking a look at the toys that it's based on. So tune in again next time for Part 2 of our in-depth look at Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors. Next time on the Multimedia Chronicles. Until then, thanks for watching, and sayonara.